Da, da, da. So, hello everybody. We are back at Time to Talk. This is Cognitive Sports Therapy, and I am here with the awesome Lucy Hibben this week. And we have been focusing on maternal mental health this month. Both, Nicola, Lucy, and I are all mums, and we felt like we wanted to kind of give it a little bit more attention than just one of these sessions. And Lucy and I were kind of talking about what this one could be about, and we were sort of talking about just doing a bit of a summary, a little bit of what we've been talking about. But then before we came on, I did wonder that maybe we could talk a little bit about sleep when it comes to being a new mum, because it's often one of those things that comes up repeatedly as a big impact on our mental health whenever we are new mums, and actually even in that phase of being heavily pregnant and not being able to sleep. And we know that sleep just impacts on everything, doesn't it? It kind of makes us feel tired and stressed and more anxious, and just everything becomes amplified in life. And dealing with a new baby whenever you're really tired is one of the biggest issues, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we thought, because I think you and I talk about doing a lot of stuff with sleep anyway, maybe we could kind of have a little bit of a think of whether we've got kind of some nice tips that we could be giving mums out there to help them sleep. So I don't know whether you want to start, Lucy, because I mean I go straight to breath work when I think about you and sleep, but maybe you've got other kind of little things that you think are worth sharing.
Yeah, and I mean, I will just start by saying I have a lot of experience with this. Just on a personal level, my eldest little boy was a great sleeper. So when I had my youngest, I was absolutely not prepared for, a year more even of disrupted sleep. And with my second, it also coincided with anxiety as well. I suffered from big anxiety, which I saw a doctor about and had medication for, and it was sort of being managed. But the sleep perpetuated the anxiety.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety perpetuated the sleep, and it was this cycle. And I remember Archie would wake up 5 or 6 times a night, and I would not be able to go back to sleep in between the feed cycles. And it got to a point where I was desperate. I was so desperate. And that's when I really started to realize that my yoga practice was so much more than just a physical practice. This is when I started to really uncover the benefits of mindfulness, meditation, and breath work. And none of it was complicated or complex like you might believe it is. Mindfulness and meditation, all of these things can be really simple. And so it's a mindset thing as well. It's about setting your expectations and finding something that helps to distract you from the cycle of thoughts over I'm never going to sleep again. When you're going through sleepless nights, or when you're suffering with anxiety because you've got a new baby and you're not sleeping well, the type of language that happens in your mind can often be quite detrimental and negative. And so, just learning about the power of breathing correctly and breathing at a rate which relaxes the body. And I researched it and began to understand that even if I'm not actually sleeping, what's more important is managing my heart rate, managing my kind of cortisol levels, my stress, the stress in my body. And it took a while, but I began to switch the mindset to the mindset of, okay, I'm not going to sleep, but I'm going to do something really good for me. I'm going to do my breath work. I'm going to be really mindful. I'm going to relax myself. I'm going to self-soothe. And what it meant was that I stopped getting into these cycles of panic in the middle of the night and started using that time as a time for self-care. And that might sound really crazy, but actually, what if you're awake, are you going to be awake and stressed and panicky, or are you going to be awake and take care of yourself? And so 4/8 breathing for me was the biggest thing that I noticed had the biggest impact on my ability to just slow down my heart rate, because I would lie there like my heart would be like this, and and then you're never going to go to sleep when you're in your fight or flight mode. So to just learn how, and to actually physically feel everything just softening and slowing, and the breath getting deeper and more, me feeling more relaxed. So
So
yeah.
explain what 4/8 breathing is to anyone who hasn't kind of heard of that.
Sorry. Yeah, so
That's
it's a rate of breathing that doubles the amount. It's 2-to-1 breath, basically. So you inhale for 4 and you exhale for 8. You could inhale for 2 and exhale for 4, or 3 and 6. It's doubling the amount of the exhale, versus what you're inhaling. And your focus is solely on the breath. You're counting your breath, and you start to then realize, oh, I'm gripping my jaw, my shoulders are up here. I used to always find my fingers were like this when I was lying in bed at night. And
yeah,
so over a course of a few months, I started to get a deeper understanding of myself, and how I was sort of inadvertently perpetuating the cycle with my response to being awake.
yeah,
And it's difficult with the baby, because obviously, in your head, they're going to, oh, he's going to be up in 2 hours. Oh my God, he's going to be up in an hour. Oh, now
yeah,
it's half an hour. Well, there's just no point now. And
yeah,
it's really, I can just, if anyone is going through this right now, if this sounds familiar, I really can sympathize. But if you can start to shift your mindset towards thinking about doing something positive for yourself in those hours that can feel really lonely,
yeah,
then try working with your breath. The other thing is thinking about not putting too much pressure on yourself to go to sleep and to be asleep. And it's
yeah,
really it can be really unhelpful to read, and when something popped up on one of my news feeds yesterday about what happens to the body when we have one night of bad sleep.
not
And
sleeping. Yeah,
I would find that I would be looking at things like that, and all of this stuff would perpetuate
just
this
makes it worse.
cycle and make it
Yeah,
worse. And so be mindful about what you're feeding yourself in terms of what you're looking at. Don't be on your phone and in the middle of the night, because you just
yeah.
never know what's going to pop up and have that effect on you. Use the time to really focus on you and yourself.
Yeah, because I think all those other kind of advice, tips when it comes to sleep to do with, going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same
Can't do
time, and
it.
and you can't do it when you've got a baby. And as you say, there's an element of kind of using the time that you do have and being restful, trying to avoid becoming stressed and anxious. And as you say, avoiding like the kind of worst thing we can think of when we're trying to sleep is that we must have X number of hours. It's like it's one
Yeah.
of the most unhelpful statements out there. It's not true, and it gets bandied around. And then as soon as you kind of think, oh, I'm not getting the sleep, as you say, then you can kind of go into this cycle of panicking. So I think all those kind of other tips, they go.
Oh, I think we might have lost Claire. We'll just give her a minute. Oh, there she is. She's popped back on. Sorry, you froze for me.
I do every time. Don't worry. It's
You
my
didn't
it's
last
my
time.
time to
You didn't
talk
last time.
effect. And I think the other thing, again, you're the napper. I always think of you as someone who naps
Yes,
successfully.
I'm
All
a
my
napper.
teaching tells me to tell people not to nap. But again, I think this is another one of those scenarios where we kind of need to, don't we? Napping is how we can kind of function. I have to say I couldn't nap when I was a new mum. Everyone said you should sleep whenever the baby's sleeping, and I just couldn't bring myself to. I've never been a napper, even when I've done night shifts and things. But if you can nap, go for it, because I think just these little kind of moments where you've got time and rest are really kind of restorative whenever you're feeling kind of anxious and stressed, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think if we try to think about this from our central nervous system's perspective, we want to be using every opportunity we can to
Mm.
get more rest, so that we can switch into our parasympathetic nervous system, our restful state. And so napping for me works, and it doesn't work for everybody. I am a napper now, even now, you know, and I'm a good sleeper generally, but also if you think back to the way things used to be many years ago, you know, the 8 hours of sleep a night is a relatively new thing. It never used to be this way. And so try to think about it in chunks, and think about it less about how much deep sleep you've had, and more about how much rest can you have, how much relaxation time can you have, which with a new baby is tricky, but there are ways of managing that, you know, with breastfeeding or when you're bottle feeding, whichever way you're doing it, you know, that can be a really mindful time. So rather than sitting there with the TV on, you can use it to maybe use some affirmations, or using it to do some breath work, just to have the moments of calm. And again, in the middle of the night, the other thing I used to do was use an affirmation. You know, one of the ones, it might sound a bit crazy, but I used to always say, I trust my body. I trust my body. Because we end up sometimes, when things aren't sort of working how we perceive them, how we perceive they should be working, it can have this disconnect with our body, and we start not trusting our body. We start thinking we're broken in some way. And so using positive language, positive reinforcements of, you know, I trust my body, I care about myself, you know, and recognizing that this will pass. This is not, you know, a
That's
week
the one
of
I was
bad
going to say,
sleep.
because I think,
A week of bad
that's the
sleep, a
one I
month
think,
of bad sleep is not going to be, it's not going to be that way forever. And it's really worth remembering that in the midst of it all. And sometimes when you have your second baby, you think, oh, I wish I knew what I know now when I was going through this with my first baby, because our first baby shows us that everything is in stages, everything changes. And one moment it's sleep deprivation, and the next moment it's anxiety over what they're going to put in the mouth next, you know, and it's stages. But you know, that's not to take anything away from how it feels when you're in the midst of it. It can feel challenging. And one of the things I was just going to mention was that we are doing so much more now for our mums, and rightly so. You know, there's so much more support out there, and it's getting better. So also just talk to people, talk to us, talk to your friends. Don't ever feel like you're alone, because I promise you you're not. And there are some really lovely people out there that will help you.
I think those are kind of the takeaway messages, aren't they? That you're kind of not alone in this, and that this will pass. And I think the only other thing, I always kind of string our sleep pattern together with our eating habits a little bit, and kind of just being really cautious about that, you know, trying to avoid getting in that cycle of I'm tired, so I'll eat sugar, or I will drink coffee, or those sorts of things that we think will help, which actually then unfortunately make it worse in the longer run. But I hate putting that as a kind of a, you should do this, you should do that, because, you know, whenever you're in the midst of being a new mum, you don't need a list of things that you should or shouldn't do, but it's just being cautious about, you know, making sure that you're getting the right nutrition in, and thinking about that, because I think that has a massive impact on how fatigued we feel, not just, I guess, our sleep. But
because we're basically affecting our nervous system. We're affecting everything with these stimulants, aren't we? You know, we're eating sugar, we're drinking coffee, we're drinking tea or whatever, and actually you can normally you know, if you need to pick a bit of a pick me up, there's normally other things that you can do, like your breath work or going for a walk outside. You know, often if you feel sluggish in the afternoon, just get outside if you can, pop the baby in a pram, go for a walk, you know, and that can really help to just give you a little bit of a lift. So Claire, one thing I wanted to ask you actually was, you've talked to me a bit about the importance of not being in bed necessarily when you're taking care of these things. So what would you say about that? Should we look to if we're awake in the middle of the night, should we look to be getting out of the bed and finding a cozy space, or should we stay in the bed? What are your thoughts on that?
I think all the general advice you see goes out the window when we're in this world of new mums
Mm-hmm.
completely. And I would be loath to say to a mum to do feeding. I loved bringing all three of my babies into bed
Yeah.
with me to feed, and um, I think this is a particularly different time of life, and we kind of just do what feels right. I know a lot of mums who would have a chair beside the bed and they would get out and feed there. You know, psychologically, we're not meant to do anything else in the bed other than sleep. But this is, it's the one time in your life when those rules they go out the window and you just have to do what works for you. And it's just obviously with a word of caution about trying to avoid falling asleep when you're feeding a baby in the bed, because there's a lot of advice against that. But I think you just need to do what makes you feel right. Avoid, people telling you what you should and shouldn't do. And I just,
Yeah.
as we've sort of said about remembering that this will pass, and using the people around you that are supportive to kind of get you through it. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about that at all for this group. We can have a
Okay,
different
cool.
conversation
Cool.
another day
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
sleep
absolutely.
generally, and maybe that would be worth us doing. But I think for this, for new mums, just do what works for you.
Trust your body,
Lovely.
right? Just trust
Trust your body.
trust your instinct, and
Yeah.
just, yeah. And I think that's the thing as well. Is I remember I went through a phase of just buying all the books, the Baby Whisperer, this, that, because I was sort of so desperate. And then everything I read made me feel like I was failing in some way. Oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So I remember my husband, he was just like, threw them all out.
Throw
It's
them
like,
away.
enough. You know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
there is no right way here. You just, it is what it is. And
And it's just different for everybody has a different way, don't
everybody's
they? That
different.
you have to kind of, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So just trust yourself. And it is so hard with sleep, isn't it? But it will pass, and it's not going to be this way forever.
yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for
Thank
listening,
you.
everybody. And we will be back. I'm going to skip next week because I'm going to take a week off for annual leave, but we will be back with Time to Talk in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining us.
brilliant. Thanks,
Thanks,
Claire.
Lucy. Bye.
Bye.